Hello, how you doing, Jordan? Today I'm going to be interviewing Jordan Cassey. He's originally from Waterford in Ireland. He's a young entrepreneur in his early 20s. Yeah, done some very interesting things in his life. He's been an avid public speaker since about 2012. He's spoken at over 200 events in different countries. He's been speaking about entrepreneurship, tech literacy, computer science, and education reform. He's talked in California. He's talked in the Web Summit in Dublin. He's done TED Talks as well in Warsaw, Delhi, and different countries around the world. A lot of nominations for a young lad. Uh, and Yeah, so he's going to have a quick talk today. There's some big, interesting things happening in the banking industry and in Bitcoin, and he's going to share his story. Yeah, so welcome, Jordan. Welcome to the Larpar podcast.
Thanks,
And
Lawrence, man. Delighted to be on.
yeah, yeah. So tell us, Jordan, tell us a bit about it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's dive straight in and tell me a little bit about your backstory and how you came to discover Bitcoin and what brought you down this journey.
yeah, no problem. And thank you for the introduction as well. Yeah, really happy to be on with you. I guess like you mentioned there, my history of computer science and my love for technology and entrepreneurship is very much intertwined with my introduction to the world of Bitcoin. I guess everything really started for me probably, geez, about 14 years ago now when I was 9 years old. My first sort of foray into the world of technology. Growing up, I was like a very avid gamer. Used to play like a lot of games on PlayStation and was always really interested, weirdly enough, in how the technology behind all of those games I was playing actually worked. And, I was always very curious. So the age of 9, came across a game called Club Penguin, which is this basically this miniature game where kids used to go on and play as a penguin and like chat to each other. And what was really interesting about Club Penguin for me was there was this massive community of young people like myself who were actually building out websites and fan content based around the world of Club Penguin. And obviously, growing up and playing these sort of large blockbuster games like FIFA and Call of Duty, like that world of like development or anything near it was so far from me at the age of like 8 or 9. So to be sort of now in a community where young people were creating content and we're actually like like developing high quality stuff. It was yeah, it was very attractive to me. So that's where it really started for me. I bought a load of books, watched a load of YouTube videos at the age of 9 and taught myself how to write websites using the likes of like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And so initially everything started from me there with sort of the Club Penguin. And after a couple of years of making websites about games, I finally decided like I was going to look in to try and create my own games myself. And so after a bit more digging, I came across the iOS development kit or on Xcode in about 2011, 2012. Taught myself just how to build basic mobile games, basing them off of like classic arcade games. Thought it would be a really cool hobby. And so I went about the route of actually distributing my own game, which was called Alien Ball versus Humans, very similar to like Space Invaders.
Mm.
Went and published it on the App Store purely as just like a hobby or just something to do with my spare time. And then immediately once I distributed it, it became quite popular, topped the game charts here in Ireland and the UK. And what that did is it sort of like showed me that not only would this be a hobby or a fun thing to do, but it also might be a potential career path for me, and it was something that was finally attainable, like the world of sort of entrepreneurship. And so from the first game, I started a number of different technology startups, mainly around game development and distribution, some freelance work. I then worked in the world of education for a couple of years. I launched a product called Teachware at the Dublin Web Summit in 2013, which was basically a cloud-based management portal for primary schools. And so that did pretty well. We had about 30,000 active teachers at one point. So I released that as open source in 2015. So I've done a couple of yeah, whole bunch of different startups, and like you said there, the world of speaking has been a huge thing for me as well. Like I just sort of fell into it at the age of 12 when I'd started to kind of develop the business and garner a bit of press around that. Um, yeah, I just was invited to speak at a conference in France once, never done it before. Growing up, like I was very like nerdy, as you can probably tell, like very shy guy. And so for me, yeah, it was just a million miles away. But the second I stepped up on stage for the first time, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the idea of sharing my story, promoting youth entrepreneurship and tech literacy, like you said, the importance of it. And also, especially around those days when I was 13, 14, I just felt yeah, it felt great to sort of be seen as a not a role model or sort of like an example for young kids that there's endless possibilities really. Like there's no barrier with your age, or at least it's something I try to promote. And so yeah, I've been doing that for like 13, 14 years. And then last year, my sort of actually maybe it was about 2 or 3 years ago, my first sort of foray into cryptocurrency initially, and then Bitcoin came about. Obviously, like within the tech community, I learned a lot about what Bitcoin was, and you could see the news coming up, but it's not something I initially sort of threw myself into. It was only in 2019, late 2019, I was working with a company called Kano Computing, who were also working with Kanye West, the rapper, and his company Yeezy on a technology device called the Stem Player, which launched last year, 2022 or late 2021. And one of the ideas that Kanye had was to basically look at the NFT realm and to look at using NFTs and audio NFTs as a way to sort of revitalize like music ownership and like sort of bypass record labels and stuff. That was a big thing for him. And so that's how I fell into the world of like NFTs initially and cryptocurrency. And I was doing my own reading on all of these altcoins. And then just over a year ago, through a frequent collaborator of mine, John O'Connor, who you know as well, of course, and then Jack Starling approached me with the idea for Verify 21, and basically threw myself into the rabbit hole of Bitcoin then over the last just over a year now. I was learning with fire, like, because obviously working on a Bitcoin startup at the same time is doing my own reading and my education on it. So I kind of had to fast track all of that. But yeah, obviously still learning a lot now, still relatively new. Just still trying to find my feet, but like really like I'm enthralled. I'm a proper orange pilled guy now.
Yeah. It's true. Like, a lot of people that you talk to or we talk to, they don't really understand what Bitcoin really is and how it's really going to change the world. And it
Yeah,
is going to change the world the same way as like the electric light bulb, airplanes, the internet.
yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
only starting. It is only
Yeah,
starting.
absolutely. It's a Trojan event. Like, and I think like what you mentioned there about like the impact of Bitcoin. For me, maybe my background as a programmer would have maybe stifled me a little bit, weirdly enough, as like coming up, like reading about Bitcoin initially, and then seeing obviously all these other altcoins come out promoting this sort of innovative technology and like the infrastructure that they're promoting and the speed of it. Like you can be very attractive as a programmer to see all of these like fancy technologies and fancy coins coming out, whereas like really it is just about the simplistic nature of Bitcoin that is actually its best asset, I think, definitely as a programmer. And then also like taking my head away from like the technical aspect to the more the societal impact that Bitcoin will have. Just kind of turning off that techie brain for a bit and actually focusing on, the real world examples and the real impact that Bitcoin will have, which sort of differs it from everything else, really.
Yeah. And that's something that's a great point you brought up there. That's something that I found uh, a little bit crazy. A lot of these technology people and people that are involved in IT, they just don't get Bitcoin. When I try to talk to some of them about it, and they're just trying to pick holes in it all the time. They just
Yeah,
can't understand that it was created, it was left to the world, nobody owns it. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
it's really there to help mankind, for people that do their work on it and understand what it is. you know.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Uh,
Yeah, it was
uh,
definitely that was me for a while. Like I was definitely more interested in the sort of up and coming coins just because, yeah, the technology, it was like Bitcoin felt old or it felt like, it was the first iteration and everything else was sort of building on top of that, whereas it's actually just Bitcoin really. Like I'm glad I've changed a little bit.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, very good. And tell us a little bit about Verify 21. What's going on there? What's all that about?
Yeah, so as I said there, yeah, late 2021, early 2022, I was approached by John and Jack, my co-founders in Verify, with this idea for a Bitcoin back lending business that's different from the rest. And so John and Jack have had experience in the past with trying to seek against their Bitcoin and worked with some of the more larger businesses. And again, what we sort of found out with all of these sort of crashes in the last 12 months is that yeah, these guys are certainly operating with funny money. Like there's no real sort of like identification of your funds. There's no real way to ensure that your funds are being protected. And so what John and Jack approached me with was basically a Bitcoin backed loans business with no funny business at all. We're fully transparent. We operate with no rehypothecation, and yeah, we're just a safe place for you to get a loan and know that your Bitcoin is protected. And so yeah, we've been working on that for the last 12 months now. I obviously work in the software side of things, so I've just sort of built out the platform there. Yeah, we've done some early sort of like beta testing, some early loans there at the end of last year, and yeah, excited to see where it takes us. We're still very much in our early days. I think we have a really good team assembled. And yeah, just the exposure the last year has brought to, the funny operations of some of these, larger corporations in the crypto world, has brought to light like how powerful our product could actually be. It's just it's very simple. It's, we're transparent. We're Bitcoiners ourselves, just Bitcoiners, and we know what we want, and the lack of rehypothecation, the security of your funds in cold storage, like it's yeah, it's a bit of a no-brainer. But yeah, so just that's what I've been working on with the guys. And as I said, like it's sort of like that journey has sort of been parallel to my Bitcoin journey. And I've got to travel to some really cool events the last year, where I've just been sort of able to like multiply my knowledge by actually meeting people in the community and actually engaging with individuals, rather than just sitting here and obviously doing all my reading and watching videos. But when you're actually out there and you're speaking to other Bitcoiners, I think that's been the best education for me. Helps to legitimize my belief when there's so many other people around me that believe the same thing.
Yeah. And the first time we met was actually in Dublin at a Bitcoin event
Yeah.
that me and somebody else were put together in Ireland, and it just started off as a meetup, and it turned out then to be a conference with over 200 people.
Yeah.
And then we met again in Amsterdam, at
Yeah.
Bitcoin Amsterdam, and that was a great weekend there.
Yeah, we had a great time there. Yeah.
Great time over there, yeah.
Yeah.
So some interesting things.
Yeah, that was my first event. My first Bitcoin event was the event in Dublin there. Yeah, so it was yeah, great to meet everyone, and yeah, it was really good. Like, see, even at that point, see, when I first got in touch with Jack and John, I was actually finishing out my university studies. So like, I was doing my final year, like undergrad, and focusing on exams and trying not to get too enthralled into the rabbit hole whilst doing that. And so just once I finished my exams, then like I think that week was the event, and it was just really great to just finally like let it all out and just actually speak to people. And I really learned a lot from some of the guys speaking there. It was great. Yeah, the panel discussion was really good as well. It was a great event.
Yeah. And hopefully again now this year we'll have an even bigger and better one.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. And another thing I'd like to touch on as well about what's happening at the moment with the whole banking system.
Yeah.
So it's the 23rd of March today, 2020. I'm wearing my green jumper. It's still Paddy's Week here in Ireland.
Yeah.
So what's your take on what's been happening with the American banks and now the European banks? And a lot of people aren't really following this. They don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, no, it's it's crazy. I actually when I was working in the tech space, I was at a conference maybe 10 years ago and met with some of the executives there in Silicon Valley Bank at a conference. So yeah, it was interesting to see that name pop up as the first. Yeah, no, it's crazy. Like I'm following it as much as I can with work and stuff. And like obviously my background in undergrad was studying as an accountant. So my
Okay.
parents are both accountants. So like just getting to sort of mix the two of them together, it's kind of conflicting. But yeah, like just seeing like the Fed with the rising the interest rates again, was even just yesterday. Um yeah, it's like
Yeah, it
I'm
went up again 0.25, didn't it,
yeah,
with
up to
basis
five
points?
percent now. Yeah, it's crazy. Like yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like I saw the $1 million bet.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure what's actually what's gonna happen next. But yeah, it's been a crazy couple of weeks. Like I've seen some good takes. Like I'm a big fan of Saifedean, and I saw his
mm,
breakdown of the whole idea of Bitcoin going to $1 million. But like obviously the argument being like when there's a bank run or when the banks are shut off, like there is no money supply to hyperinflate. So I don't know if it's going to be as crazy as some people are predicting. I think it might be somewhere between, the middle.
mm.
But yeah, Saifedean made some good points about it. Like Luke Broyles as well. Like I think he's made some really good points recently. Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like I'm not sure what's going to happen. Like I could make like the ideal thing would be like that it comes true, but like
Yeah,
it is hard to tell. People can be stupid sometimes. So it's yeah, we
yeah.
don't know what decisions are going to
Well,
come next.
something we do know, someday it will get to a million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
Oh
mightn't be
yeah.
in the next 90 days, but I believe it will probably be before 2030 anyway.
I believe
So
so, yeah.
if you're
Yeah,
buying it now for
definitely.
20k odd or 25k, you just hold it. You
True.
know?
Yeah, that's it. Like, and it is the argument. It's like, is it something that we want to happen like this quickly? Like, I think it was Luke Brothers that made a good point. Like, I'm really interested in the way the Bitcoin is being adopted, especially in Africa.
Yeah.
And obviously, should something catastrophic like this happen, Africa would definitely like those nations would be some of the hardest hit. And it's just a question of whether that might actually potentially derail like adoption initially in the short run, with I think he was mentioning the idea of like conflict or like how that might affect. Like basically the argument he was making was like, would we take early Bitcoin adoption against World War III, or like do we wait until the time is right? But like I agree with you as well. It is a matter of time. I just yeah, it's the environment that we are in and just the absolute mess of the banking system right now that, you know, it's is it a time where we want to actually grow it like exponentially now, or is it a time to, I guess, like, wait for the time to be right? But I agree, it is just a matter of time.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And you can actually even see this week with what happened, you know, the
Yeah,
spike that it's gone up because
yeah,
a lot more people are copping on to, their money isn't safe in the bank,
yeah, that's
We're seeing
true.
it happen now in America. 36 hours a bank can go down and lock everything down.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like it's a great poster child for adoption. I think like the banking crisis is just the best advertisement for Bitcoin there is, really. And
Yeah,
also I think the CBDCs is also, I think, just an amazing advertising tool for Bitcoin, because it allows people that, mightn't necessarily understand Bitcoin or might be a little bit iffy about getting involved, like, but with the emergence of CBDCs and basically every single bad thing that they represent, it's very easy to convey, the freedoms of Bitcoin when you're being presented with like these like CBDCs, and like, how they could potentially control your money with a line of code, like. And so Bitcoin offers, a bet against that. So like whether it be the banking crisis or like the CBDCs, like you said, like even the big spike this week, like, they're profoundly good for Bitcoin that they are happening. But it's just, yeah, it's just finding that middle ground with operating in a fiat world for the next couple of years, or when however. But yeah, no, yeah, I think it's yeah, it's good for that anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And if you'd like to just explain to our listeners there a little bit about the CBDCs, what's your take on them? What are they all about?
Yeah. So the CBDCs are well, stands for central bank digital currency, obviously, and these are tokens that are looking to be introduced by central banks across the world, really. So, I think the UK, I think Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, is very caught up on them. Like, I think governments or the central banks are trying to sort of appear hip or like they understand things by introducing this digitized token and hoping that I don't know, take some of the flack away from like the likes of Bitcoin. But realistically, having a token like this, a tokenized cash that was distributed by central banks is a lot more dangerous than cash, and probably the banking system as it currently exists. I just think like the control that the governments can have with your money, like, I think people look at like the example of the pandemic as like as an example of that sort of level of control. But like in a situation like that, if we had a CBDC at that point, and say, for example, as the Irish government a couple of years ago, they introduced like a 2 kilometer like rule, like something like that would be easy to program into the CBDC. Like, you'd be able to track whether someone is spending outside of their 2 kilometers and basically cancel their money. After that, it's a very dangerous phenomenon that's come about. And it does seem to be getting a lot of steam, but at the same time, like I mentioned, I think it is educating a lot of people on the dangers of having that level of centralization within the digital world. And as I said, Bitcoin certainly presents sort of a way out for that. It's sort of a hedge against that, a bet against the CBDCs. And then obviously, like, you look at the European Union, they're looking to introduce sort of like an EU ID that will be linked to your wallet and then subsequently be linked to your Euro CBDC. So it's basically just trying to centralize and bring everything under control. And yeah, it's quite worrying, but
Yeah,
um
yeah.
yeah.
And I was reading an article there in the Sunday Business Post, I think it was, this only Sunday gone. And one of our ministers, Pascal Donoghue, wrote an article about the euro digital currency and how it should be a good thing, and encouraging it.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot of people that read that probably don't fully understand what this is about, and what's really going on behind the scenes with this, and how this is generally, it's programmable money, isn't it?
Yeah.
Programmed
Yeah.
centrally, that can be programmed to do what
Yeah.
they want it to do, or where you can spend it, where you can't spend it, what you can buy. People, they might think that it's 10 years down the line or something like that. But I was looking at something there recently, there only last week, and I think in America the Fed coin has been released in June.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been released
Yeah.
in June.
Yeah. Oh, geez, yeah. No, that's where I've been following that one as well. Like the US case for it is going to be the one that I'm going to be watching quite closely. Like, yeah, like you said, like I think it just kind of bolsters the importance of like the mission to like encourage Bitcoin adoption even further now. Like, because like you said, with like the minister coming out and to putting the media spin on it, to like talk about how this is such a beneficial like technology, like it's innovative, it's for our times, whereas like it's actually what's going on in the background that is the worry. And yeah, no, it's crazy. And like the thing is just encouraging Bitcoin adoption in the right way. Like I think like the gradual steps to sort of like adopting Bitcoin is just to first of all buy it and then like hold some for a while. But then the whole case for cold storage and self custody is huge, because when you have like the poster childs for these industries, like the biggest companies, obviously Coinbase in trouble again, like yesterday, like with Binance as well. It's like it's hard to push like new coiners towards a sort of sensible route from the get-go. I think like the likes of Coinbase could do a lot to push out as well against the CBDCs. Like a lot of them are, there's a lot of political like there's a lot of stuff going on there between the lines with these companies. And so Yeah, that's another thing. It's like getting people to understand Bitcoin first of all, but then also like the whole self-custody thing is huge. Because like as I said, like it's like when you first get into the world of Bitcoin, when you're like, oh, I might actually like, I might believe some of this stuff, I'm not for the idea of CBDCs initially, but like when you go and buy Bitcoin from an exchange like Coinbase and don't do anything about it, you really haven't done that much anyway, because it's not actually your Bitcoin until you take it off an exchange. But like it's a harder sell, I think, that than actually the initial Bitcoin adoption to begin with. It's like taking it off the exchange and moving forward. But yeah, no, I think like the media spin from the CBDCs is going to be pretty big. Like if you'd shown me like say 5 or 6 years ago when I was, just really into the technology and like the programming and all of that stuff, I would have like thought this was the coolest thing ever. So it is only when you actually get to understand it a little bit more that, it becomes quite a worrisome thing.
Yeah, yeah. If you can go back a little bit there, regarding Coinbase, what's the situation with Coinbase that's only after coming out? You can,
Yeah,
or,
yeah, I think the Fed issued them a preemptive
oh yeah,
warning
yeah, I've seen
yesterday.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think like it
Regarding
usually
the
always,
staking and all that type of
yeah,
stuff
with
and
the
what they were doing.
staking. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I like usually I think it's like just a sort of formality that they get that like letter, like it means that they are going to be sanctioned in some way. Yeah, luckily like when I sort of embarked on my Bitcoin journey, I didn't really go down any of the sort of like staking routes, or I didn't really hold a lot of altcoins. It was more the technology and the NFT side of things. And then whilst I was doing my learning there, I kind of came across John and Jack, who'd kind of made all those mistakes for me in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've obviously been following like the huge clampdown on staking, and obviously now like it's sort of going to come to a head with whatever happens with Coinbase. But yeah, like it's a middle ground, because as I said, like these services, Coinbase, they don't it's not your Bitcoin, it's not your coins. But on the flip side of that, they do help to legitimize a lot, and it is obviously the first sort of port of call or gateway for many people
Mm.
that are getting into it. So it's like a double-edged sword, really. Whatever happens there, like I think if they did say if Coinbase did sort of fall down or like go bust at any point, I'm not saying it will be because of this, but like I think it would be quite damaging to the adoption so far. So it is a middle ground, but like yeah, all I can say is like make sure you self custody.
Yeah, as they say, don't trust, verify with Bitcoin. They
Yeah,
say, don't they?
yeah,
Don't trust anybody
yeah,
with your Bitcoin. Take it
yeah.
off the
That's
exchange
how we got
and verify it.
Verify 21. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
there you go.
that's there
Amazing.
we go. Yeah, I think it's like verify because don't trust verify, and then 21
Yeah,
because 21 million Bitcoin. Yeah,
yeah. And if we even look back from last month, actually, when we were talking about some of these exchanges, didn't Kraken just get
yeah,
fined? Didn't they? They settled in February of 2023, and they settled like a
yeah,
$13 million fine with the SEC.
yeah.
So now the
SEC.
SEC is
Yeah,
probably seeing all these other exchanges and as a target, because the SEC is actually self-funded, isn't it? In some
yeah,
way.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah,
So
there's a weird line of organization there. Yeah,
yeah. So it looks like a perfect opportunity for them to legitimately probably target some of these exchanges that have been selling these tokens, basically.
yeah, yeah. No, you never know. Like it's like even as you said there, like I didn't know that the Fed CBDC was going to be coming so quickly. Like so, it kind of paves the way, even from a public media standpoint, and that like you can't really trust these guys are all getting fined. So when you do want to move your funds to a digital sphere, look at our CBDC, like it's perfect. Like, and then also the argument is that like they're tanking the dollar and the banking system to make the case for
Mm.
CBDCs even more like profound. So I don't know, like it's yeah, I definitely think there's some fishy business going on there, like. And yeah, I think it is mainly all coming from like, even with Kraken as well. It's just the staking programs sort of used as a sort of entry point to just get at these guys. Like, but yeah, and obviously with regulations like being so like slim and like with a lot of gray area, like it is very hard for these companies to operate. But yeah, no, it's interesting. We'll see what happens now with Coinbase. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And so, something interesting there. I was talking to a colleague of mine there last week, and he's been trying to send money to some exchanges, and the money just keeps on coming back into his
Yeah.
account. So it's like they're taking the on ramps off the load up the exchanges now as well. Not even with
Yeah.
your card, like by SEPA payments. You know what I mean? So
Real
they're
bank
using
transfers as well.
bank transfers. Yeah,
Oh, geez,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I've definitely had trouble in the past, like just with initially starting up with my card, but yeah, I didn't really know they were doing it with the SEPAs as
with the
well.
SEPA. Yeah, it's being done with the
Jesus,
SEPA as well.
that's mad.
So when you think
Yeah.
about it, when you think about it, they're actually weaponizing that SEPA
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
stop people onboarding
Yeah,
onto the
absolutely.
exchanges to get their money out of the fiat.
Yeah, no, that's insane. Yeah. Yeah, Jesus, like it's like a blacklist really now, like with that. Like it's crazy. Yeah, I've never had that now. I mean, that's
Yeah,
kind of worrying.
I've talked to a few people, and that has happened with them. You know, I think it's different when you're trying to maybe spend like a couple of hundred with a card
Yeah,
every
yeah,
month or two or something like that. When you start putting up a couple thousand up on it,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, once
Then
they
it's
see
like,
it's being legitimized, then like once they see the funds that are leaving their system to
yeah,
join another one, it's yeah, it's worrying. Like yeah, even the exchanges, they really push those card payments, and like I know it's because of the whole idea of ease, but the fees that they charge on the card payments are
yeah,
yeah,
two point nine
it's
percent
insane.
with your card. So
Yeah, it's
it,
insane. Yeah,
it adds up, doesn't it? Like
yeah.
say on a 10K upload, that's 290 every time.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and it's
You're
probably
paying.
easier for the banks to control, you know. I think it's on a banking level in terms of what vendors like will accept your card, but when it comes into the world, like you said, of SEPA and like, you know, actual wire transfers, it's yeah, it's a bit worrying there, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah, all interesting times happening in March
Yeah.
2023,
Yeah,
you know. But I've gone back and I've looked at different things basically as well. And every March there is a lot of volatility that happens for
okay.
whatever reasons, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was looking actually in February and just from some data points, and I felt something was going to happen around the 10th of March, you know, just from what I've been looking at. And
There you
yeah, I mean,
go.
I haven't even been in this whole thing for long, but I'm learning a lot. I'm looking at different graphs and everything myself, you know.
Yeah.
And there you go, it happened. It started on
Yeah.
the
Yeah, you
9th,
called it.
and
Yeah.
it wasn't really too far off.
Yeah, geez, yeah. Should be asking you for the lotto numbers next, man. Yeah. Yeah. And so how long are you involved in the space then? Like how did you get into it?
I got into it in 2020. That's when I got into it. I
Yeah.
missed it years ago when my friends were buying it for like about
Yeah.
$75. You know what I mean? Like the first I heard of it, they were buying it for about $35 and then 75, and then in 2020,
Yeah.
I didn't listen to my brother, and I missed the halving cycle. I'm buying it at around 5 grand, 6K,
Yeah.
and I started buying it a lot more
Yeah.
when I got it. But I done my work. I understood what it was. I bought it all the way up and all the way down.
Yeah.
I'm still buying.
Yeah.
Whenever
Yeah.
stacking
Yeah.
away because I just see it as our insurance
Yeah. Yeah.
for the future and a bit of hope for the kids and the grandkids.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a pension really, like isn't it? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
yeah, that's the way I treat it for like it's my savings. It's my hedge against inflation. It's my savings, like my you know, my digital goal.
yeah,
But like yeah, I think just from like you know the learning I've been doing over the last few years, I think anyone that's still in the space that would have come in that early, like we're talking about, like you know, like those 10 years ago, those crazy prices. I just feel it's so much harder to stay in the space now because it's like when was the right time to sell when of this like sort of gradual like upward and the amount of people that probably like sold out at a certain price and then you know probably became disenfranchised with the whole idea. Like if you've managed to stay the course and hold despite these just crazy like you know spikes, if you look at like where it was, you know, I think, and you've stood the test of time, then like yeah, like those people are like you know real G's, like
yeah, definitely, yeah. And to be honest, there's not too many of them really,
yeah,
you
that's
know,
it,
because a
yeah,
lot of people that I would have known from before, they either lost them
yeah,
or they just sold them and they probably doubled or tripled,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
it. Like it's like that's exactly it. It's like, you know, what price do I sell at? Like, you know, if it's gone from, you know, a dollar to like $120, even back then, like that spike, it's like it would have been very, very hard not to even consider selling at that point. And
Yeah,
then obviously, you know, as it's grown and become bigger, it's yeah, it's yeah, I could see like how a lot of people would have fell off at that point. Like you said, there are very few people that are still around at that point. Um, yeah, yeah, no, it's a crazy one. It's a crazy one. And then obviously, yeah, like everyone losing their keys and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's some crazy stories there. Yeah, I'm trying to be very like, yeah, very protective of like how I like I've seen these like I think it was at the Amsterdam conference. I don't have one myself, but it was like those like solid steel like key like
Oh
you write
yeah, I
your
actually
credit
bought one of
card.
them. I bought a
Yeah,
set of them with the stamp.
yeah, with the stamp. Yeah,
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 they're deadly.
stamper or something it's called or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, no, they're very cool.
it's
Like,
still in
yeah.
the wrapping at home in the box.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're very cool. Those kind of things. Like it's like because I just reading those horror stories and like yeah, I think I can and that's why we're talking about like these exchanges being a good entry point because it introduces people to the fundamental, gets the idea of them, holding it and seeing like the appreciation or whatever, the security of the protocol. But then it can be a little bit more difficult getting into the world of like self custody, and I think it's probably a ground that you tread quite slowly and
Mm.
make sure you do the right things and follow the right steps. Yeah, like I think it ultimately is where you should end up, but I can definitely see like the benefit for just early adoption that the exchanges do tend to have.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I think about it, a big thing about this as well, that people have to learn about it as well
Yeah,
before they really start going in and buying this. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
because if I personally think if you don't learn about it yourself, and get to know a bit about it, what it is, and not how it works or anything like that. You know what I mean? Because we know it works. You
yeah,
know, like in the end of the day, I don't know how they make this pen, but I know it works.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. That's it. It's
like a lot of things in it, like the internet, your car, engine. How does it work? We don't
yeah,
know, but we know that they're working
yeah,
and
exactly,
they've been tested.
exactly.
You know,
It's the
so
balancing act between like the technical impact, the technical implications, and all these words like blockchain and like like your keys and stuff, and then like you said, like the societal impact, like the practicality. We know it works. We know the technology, like Matt doesn't lie, but it is the societal impact that is greater. And I think it turns a lot of people off because they hear the idea of Bitcoin, they hear in the news all these crazy stories of people losing their keys and like how what even is a wallet, what is a mine, or what all of these kind of questions. Whereas like that's not the education you should be doing. Like it is
mm,
it is it is like reading about like the Bitcoin standard or like
mm,
actually understanding like the societal impact and just like understanding money as a fundamental to begin with, because like not a lot of people actually understand that either.
yeah,
And so like if anything's confusing, it's like our current financial system rather than Bitcoin. Bitcoin in its essence is very simple, but because it
mm,
gets jogged up with all these technical terms and like like all these blockchain and crypto, yeah, it can be a bit off-putting for people. But I think the education aspect of it is core. Like, and I think that is starting to change now. I think like there's a lot of good representatives for the community. Like I really like what Saylor has to say. Like I'm a huge fan of his, but
yeah.
like
He's
it
brilliant.
it changes the narrative from like Bitcoin. Say I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago, if you'd heard about Bitcoin, it would have been in the trading sphere, or like how people get into it, get crazy rich, and then sell out. Whereas like I think Saylor and the likes of like even safety and stuff like that are pushing the narrative that it's not an asset to be traded. It's not an asset to ever sell.
Yeah,
And as that narrative comes into play a bit more, I think that will help with the education aspect and the adoption aspect, as opposed to like that whole trading, like get rich quick scheme. Like I think many people like their first foray into Bitcoin and crypto is, this is going to make me a lot of money very quickly. But like it's the reason people stay is, the impact it will have, and once they've educated themselves, that's where the secret really lies. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I've kind of broken that down into kind of three types of people. There's going to be a trader
Yeah.
that buys and sells and tries to get the 5 or 10% up or down, and they're looking at the screen every day for hours and hours.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is 90% of traders lose over time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're going up against the big JP Morgans and all them people that have like,
Their Bloomberg terminals.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. All the big software and AI that they're using to test the ups and downs.
Yeah.
The second type of person is going to be an investor that has a couple of euros there or dollars, and they want to just put it in one buy and just leave it for maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But what I class myself and maybe what we teach people as well, and our dentists that we work with, is being a saver, a long-term saver.
Yeah.
You just dollar cost average into it, you know what I mean, as a kind of a plan B kind of pension, if you want to call it that, or a saving scheme, and just chip away every week or every month and buy a piece of Bitcoin, put it away, and then you say, okay, that's for 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road, and just keep on doing that.
Yeah, that's that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think I would probably consider myself in that bracket as well. And it's like it is the fundamental reason why Bitcoin was created. It's a store of value. So it's it's not something that should be traded or just ever so. No, it is. Consider it like a pension. Like, it's definitely how I feel about it. Just I like the word hedge against inflation. I like that phrase. It's one I use when I'm sort of trying to educate like my peers and stuff about it. But no, that's a good breakdown. I probably agree with you there. Yeah.
And even I go a little bit further to say about the hedge against inflation. I'd say it's a hedge against the devaluation of our currency.
Yeah.
You know, because over time our currency and our euros are going down in value. As they print more and more and more. But if you look at Bitcoin over time, it's going up in value. Like, just to keep it simple, 10 years ago, to buy a house with Bitcoin, you probably needed 1 million Bitcoin. Now, you probably need to buy the same house, 10 Bitcoin, which would be 300 grand, 300 grand approximately.
Yeah.
So you're using less of the unit.
Yeah, totally. That's it. Like, it's like the Jeff Booth's really good on this topic. And like talking about deflation and and I think even like that narrative is a lot more prevalent now because of how like crazy inflation is. It's like, when it's at a lower rate, people realize that like they're losing money just by having it sit there in a bank account year on year, whereas like as like, unfortunately, with like the cost of living crisis and stuff, when the value of like your cash year on year in the bank is going down like up to like 15%, like it's a strong case to just educate yourself on Bitcoin. Definitely
and it's going down at that rate in Europe and the Americas. Right, imagine in Turkey and in other Asian countries, it's going down like
mad
100%.
Yeah, it's crazy
in some countries.
This is it. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, and like in Latin America as well, like the importance of Bitcoin in some of these countries, and like obviously touching on like Africa earlier, it's really interesting to see how adoption is being taken up there, not only because it actually for the first time for many introduces like those digital rails and a way for people to easily own their own money, but like as a hedge against the hyperinflation of a lot of these countries. I think I was reading about, I think it was Nigeria, when they were looking at some their version of the CBDC, and like to buy Bitcoin on like exchanges now, just because of the demand of it, I think it's like $38,000 it's priced at, just because of like the Nigerian exchanges and like the negative impact the CBDC has had like there. But it's like it is these countries that I think it will probably have the most profound and sort of like the most sort of easily recognizable to start like impact, like stuff in El Salvador is just it's so cool to see like how that country has turned itself around the last few years, not obviously only because of Bitcoin, but like the impact that's had in the community that seems to be forming there. Like they're miles ahead of anyone else, I think. Especially like the size of their nation and like to stand out. Like I think like it's one of the in one of the safest nations in Latin America in the world, like at the minute, like it's
in the last year.
They
cleaned up all the gangs over there. They sorted out a lot of the corruption. They've sorted out a lot of the extortion as well to business owners from the gangs and everything.
It's crazy.
People have been watching a few videos about it, and People are saying that the kids can come home from school now and they don't have to stay in the house all the time. They can go out and actually play on the streets.
Yeah, crazy.
You know what I mean? To think like that, you can't even do that. You know what I mean? In your own
Yeah,
town or village. And
yeah,
then
it's
you're
mad.
afraid that your kids will be getting kidnapped. I mean, it was a daily occurrence over there,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
it's mad.
so the GDPR has gone up as well. But when you look at it over the last year, all the negativity that has come out in the papers and in the media about them, saying that they're going the wrong way and all, and it's been total
Yeah,
good. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Total fear that's just coming out. And
yeah. Like you look at
when
the
you,
approval rates, you look at like what people are saying in interviews on the ground. Like I've seen like a few vox pops of people. I think is the Adopted Bitcoin conference last November, and people speaking to locals, and like whilst I think the adoption by the locals has been like a little bit slower than anticipated. I think like the impact and like the positivity around the place right now, like thanks in part to Bitcoin and obviously like
yeah,
what's happening there, but like like it's like you're looking at the actual people there, what they're saying, how happy you are, and then you're reading this big article, like talking about all this FUD basically is
yeah,
it's annoying. It's basically what's happening with everything. It's certainly what's going to be the case with the CBDCs as well. Like it's yeah, it's
yeah,
very. I'd love to visit there.
they're gonna put a nice spin on it, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Yeah,
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 yeah. And Ireland's good at doing a few good spins lately as well. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, very much so. Yeah, yeah. I know it's interesting as well. Obviously, I'm only over in London here in the UK for the last like year.
All right.
And so just kind of educating myself on like the political system here. Obviously, we see it from afar back home, but like there's a lot of it here as well. I remember it was actually was it Stella? It was Stella Assange, Julia Assange's wife that was
Mm-hmm.
at the Bitcoin Amsterdam. Just
Mm-hmm.
before I came in London, there was this massive like it was like a peaceful protest when they all the protesters like held hands and they
Oh, I seen that
made a
around
ring
Parliament.
around the House of Parliament. And like I was just actually going past it in London. It was massive, like thousands of people there. I couldn't see one article about it like on any of the media sources at all. Not one. Like I scraped everywhere for it. So it's like it's prevalent here as well. I'm sure.
Well, if we talk about that, if we look at what's going on right now
Yeah,
with the banks, that should be all over the front page of every paper in
yeah,
Ireland
yeah,
every day. You know what I mean? All over the news, all over everything. But it's
yeah,
not.
yeah.
They're
Crazy.
keeping it really, really low key.
Yeah, yeah, crazy. Like
You know
even
what I mean?
when the Feds announced that spike there, the basis point, 25 basis points yesterday, I was just like looking at my phone like shocked and said it to like my roommates here. I was like, lads, this is happening. Like they don't really like what does that mean? Like it's like
Yeah.
there's like the media isn't funneling any of that through. Like it's I agree with you there. It's they do like to put a spin on it.
Yeah. And when you look at that, you're bringing up that point about the 0.25. When you look at that, in the last 12 months, or maybe 13 months, the Fed has increased the interest rate by 5% now.
Yeah.
That's what it is, 5% with that
Like
extra 0.25
that's
on.
what it is. Yeah, five. Yeah.
Europe isn't that far behind it.
No, no, and they
You
usually
know?
do tend to follow suit, don't they?
Yeah,
Jeez,
it's coming. You
yeah, it
know?
is. Yeah, yeah, it is
So
coming. Yeah,
at least
yeah,
we kind of know what's going on and we're a
yeah.
little bit ahead of the game. You know, we can
That's it.
protect ourselves a little bit quicker than other people. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? If we move now, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And do something to protect our wealth. We're gonna call
yeah,
it that.
yeah.
Because
That's it, man.
it's gonna get wiped.
Still early. Like that was as it was as soon as I found out how early I was. Like because getting into it obviously only a couple of years. Like it would have been very easy to be like, oh, like you're talking about there, like having a head start. And once I actually fundamentally understood like the world of Bitcoin and just basically it's more so the education about what's actually happening right now in like the real world rather than well, not the real world, but like what's actually happening on the ground rather than the Bitcoin that kind of scared me the most. But like like if anyone's listening, like you are still so early. Like it's like
Yeah,
like how far ahead of the game and just protecting ourselves we are is just insane. And it's very hard to kind of gauge that when you look at like 10 years ago. Oh, the price was like a couple of dollars then, but like, trust me, in a few years, like the difference in price then and now will be nothing. Like
yeah.
honestly, it's it's mad.
Yeah, yeah. I think people are better off actually getting into it now or in the last few years because there's more support around you.
Yeah,
You can talk to more people, you know what I mean? You can use like a ledger, you don't take stuff off the exchanges, you know what I mean?
totally.
There's more education around as well, you know, than there would have been years ago. So I think people are in a better position now. Now the price might be higher,
Mm,
but if you forget about the price and just look at the value of it and
yeah.
understand the value, what it's going to be in another 10 years' time, we're okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's definitely easier to get an understanding of it now. And like, I think, yeah, back in the early days, certainly sort of like allude to being the Wild West days, compared to like, how it's come on since then. Like, yeah, like as I said, the support that's there, even with like the importance of like self custody and like, speaking about that, like, the level of knowledge like that is available for free for anyone that really does want to get an understanding and they do want to learn is there. Community is growing like year on year. Like it's yeah, so cool to like meet like new people. Like I feel like anyone I meet at any of these like Bitcoin conferences, like that's such a diverse pool of people, and like there's so many different backgrounds. But like I just yeah, just like it just legitimizes all like I'd be speaking to like a neurosurgeon here at the London Bitcoin meetup. I go to that regularly, so be meeting like neurosurgeons and doctors there at like Bitcoin Amsterdam. I was speaking to like a commercial jet pilot for like 2 hours, and it's just like we're all just here because of like the mission and like we understand it. And it's like when you're listening to like neurosurgeons and pilots telling you like this is the thing, like it just legitimizes it even further. Yeah, but the community that's grown up, especially I think like quite quickly, like you said, the last 2 years. Yeah, it's a great thing to be part of.
Yeah, 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 definitely, definitely, definitely. Yeah, yeah. So where's your journey gonna take you now in the next year or two? Where you see
Um,
yourself going? You're stacking your stats anyway.
of course, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Continue to stack my sats. Yeah, well, that's the fixed goal. That won't change. But yeah, like just progressing things with Verify 21 and seeing where that takes us. It is an interesting time in the world of like Bitcoin and then also just in general fintech, like to be launching this. But yeah, I'm very excited about that. So we'll see where that comes. Hopefully try to get over to Miami in May. That'll be good crack. Hopefully that's the plan anyway. But yeah, just continuing my learning really. Like it's something that I feel I probably never like there'll never be something that isn't there to learn or find out about. Like I was reading Mastering Bitcoin recently and just trying to for the first time get a real sort of like idea of the technology behind it. Like it's really interesting. Like just doing my reading there. Yeah, and then also just like encouraging everyone I meet or come across to like to give it a chance. It's yeah, like the adoption side of it is hard and it can be quite frustrating when like when you're orange pilled and when you kind of sort of seen the light, like it feels like everything else is just a no-go. So when it's trying to convey that to like my peers or my roommates or whatever, it can be quite difficult. But like that's another goal I have is just to take what I've learned and like the positivity that it's brought to me and spread that. Feel like for most Bitcoiners it's sort of like a vocational thing. But
Mm.
yeah, no, that's definitely it. But yeah, just learning, stacking sats, and
Yeah,
hopefully meeting Bitcoiners along the way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, very good, very good. Cool. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Jordan, how would they
Yeah,
get in touch with you? What's the best way to get in touch with you if they want to talk to
uh,
you about maybe Verify 21 or if you're
sure,
on
yeah,
Twitter,
yeah,
drop
yeah.
your
I'm on.
handles there.
Yeah, my Twitter is Casey Games, so I've kept my handle from all those years. So it's Casey, my second name, Casey Games, Games. I used to run a gaming company called Casey Games, and that was my Twitter handle. And then I got like Twitter verification before the blue. I got access to it, and so the rule is like you can't change your handle or like it goes to review
Yeah.
again. So I'm just like gonna wait out for the while, but yeah, and then obviously Verified 21 is our lending business, and our website is verify21.io, and my email is jordan at verify21.io. So yeah, anyone get in touch with me. Really looking to network and meet new people.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so thanks for your time, and we'll catch you again. I might see you in Miami or in
Yeah,
Dublin or
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Hopefully, thanks, Lawrence.
Okay, thanks, thanks, thanks.